Hey Techno Studs, in our last video we set up switch 1 to be a layer 3 switch between all of our VLANs. And now we have connectivity between our VLANs. What we don't have is connectivity to the outside world. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up this link between the router and switch 1 to start prepping us and getting us ready for that connectivity to the internet, or what will go out to the internet at some point in time. And so let's learn how to set that up. We have two options to do that. We can create a routed port on our switch to make a connection between those 2 points, or we could set up a VLAN on our switch that's going to allow us to connect the router up to it. Now, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to set up a separate VLAN, and I'm going to call this VLAN 9. And that VLAN 9 is specifically going to be for this link right here. And what that allows me to do is in the future, if there is anything else that I want to connect to this VLAN, for instance, I could maybe mirror the port and see the traffic that's going to the outside world. So I could set up port mirroring to do that. Or another example is maybe I want a couple routers out here and I want to mirror between those two routers. Or perhaps I want a separate gateway out here that's going to make a connection to some other devices. So VLAN 9 is going to set us up for everything between our outside gateways and our internal networks. So I'm going to actually prefer to put this on a separate VLAN rather than use a routed port. So let's jump on our demo laptop here where we're going to do some configuration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by configuring the switch for that VLAN. So I'm jumping on the switch here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by getting into the global configuration mode. So I'll do that. And the next commands here, I'm going to set up VLAN 9 with the name gateway. So I'm going to put that into there, name gateway. And now I want to set up the interface to have an IP. We're going to create a switch virtual interface, similar to what we did with the other VLANs, where we set up each of the VLANs to have its own IP address so it could route between those networks. We're going to do the same thing with this. So we're going to call this interface VLAN 9 and give it an IP address, both the IP version 6 and IP version 4. So I've labeled this with our schema that we've created. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it into here, and we're going to configure that. The next thing that I'm going to do is the interface, the actual physical interface that's connected to my router, I'm going to set up to be an access port. And specifically, it's going to be an access port for that VLAN. So then I'm going to configure it right there. I'll copy that. I'll paste into here. And there we go. And if I wanted to, for some reason, add another piece of equipment, I could actually configure also port 48 to do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that actually. Why not? So I'm going to do port 48. And this is our connection to gateways. We'll just leave it generic for now, and I'll get back into global configuration mode and configure this interface, because then we can plug other pieces of equipment or redundancy or whatever, for whatever purpose that is, because that was one of the reasons why I'm setting this up with VLANs and SVI rather than doing a routed port. Okay, so now it's time to get into router 1 and configure that side. So on this side, I've got it configured with this IP address right here. And then now on the other side, I need to put it on the other side of there. And I do notice that I want this to be part of .240. So I opened this up a little bit. Rather than just having 2 IP addresses on each side, I opened it up to have multiple IP addresses on each side, so that way I could put some additional equipment here on this network, this in-between zone right here. So here I've got, let me jump into the router. So I am consoled into the router at this point in time because I don't have connectivity to it. So what I'm going to do is get into this. So I'll paste the password in there. Get into the enable mode, which requires a password as well. So I'll paste that into there. And then I'm going to go into the global configuration mode. And I want to get into the interface. So we'll do interface. And then the interface here is FA01 is the interface that we'll use. So I'm going to get into there. Give it a description. So that link, it's the IP address is the other side of that link. And I don't need these statements. That's already default set up on there. So I'll copy this and paste it into here. Oh, don't need the interface part of that, although it wouldn't really do much. So there we go. And I noticed one other thing that I want to correct with this. Okay, so there we go. Hit enter. Correct that in my change right there. Okay, so now I've got it set up on both devices. Now, what I can do is I can test this out. So the next step would be testing this out. Now, what I can do is I can pull up a command prompt and try to ping this address. So ping, first of all, I'm going to ping the close side to it. So 10.240.0.1, see if we can reach there. And I get a reply back from there. Now let's try to do the other side of that link and hit enter. And it's not looking like I can get there. And so let's explain what's happening there. Okay, what's happening is we're on this demo laptop right here. And we're pinging, we can ping the interface that goes out to the router, but we can't ping the router itself. And what's happening is that this demo laptop is sending to its default gateway, which is this switch. The switch can route it out this line and it actually gets to this router. But then the router is not aware of this network. So it doesn't know how to send a reply back. So that's why we're not able to successfully ping the router. So, but what we can do is we can bring up switch 1 and see if we can ping the other side of that network. So ping, and then we do 10.240.0.2 is the other side. So hit that and we can ping between switch 1 and the router. So we're able to ping this. We just can't ping throughout the whole network at this point in time because we haven't set up routing. Well, routing is another module, and we'll get into that module a little later on. But for now, for the purposes of this, we know that we've got set up, all of our VLANs are set up correctly, and our link to the other router is set up correctly. We have connectivity. We just don't have routing between that router and those VLANs at this point in time. So we'll discuss that in a future module. But thanks for watching my video.